The presence of artificial intelligence in our life gets you to question what life itself is, because they simulate life in a very interesting way. People will say, oh, but they're not alive. I'm not really sure.
Well, the question is, how would they consider us?
And that is truly the question I'm driving at.
The biggest trend in humanity today, it is the rise of artificial intelligence and how it will shape your life.
I went all the way to becoming Chief Business Officer of Google X. Before that, I ran half of Google Global. And then 2014, sadly, my wonderful son left our world. The hardest thing ever. But the second phase of my life is what I call the 1 billion happy phase. Now my target is 1 billion happy, which hopefully makes me a billionaire before I leave the world, but not a dollar billionaire, a happiness billionaire. So I did an experiment that was called Understanding Fate. And Understanding Fate was an assumption that things don't happen randomly. And when you see it that way, your relationship with death becomes different.
I want to know what happens when you die.
Oh, that's a complex question.
Gladiators, rarely I actually say this, and today I actually have a hero of mine, a true gladiator of real life, and it's true. Mo Gawdat, welcome to our studio, the arena. We call it, do you know why we call our studio the arena? Because it's like an arena of life.
Yes.
And gladiators refers our followers, and we have 1 million followers or subscribers on YouTube, 4 million on social media platforms. And what they like is that these days we don't go to work like our life dependent on it. We go just to play.
Oh,
and most people, yes and no, because what happens is when we're in an entrepreneur or a salesperson, we are almost conditioned to think that we're going to lose. But I think if you were a gladiator 2,000 years ago and you went to battle every day, but you practice, you rehearse, and your life depended on it, you win more battles.
It's such a wonderful way of looking at it. I find that play as an attitude is probably so I'm a very serious video gamer.
Yes.
Don't be fooled by my age.
Yes.
I'm, if any of our audiences are video gamers, I'm the one that killed.
Okay. I play FIFA every day. Okay,
Oh,
you got me. That's the
right.
first time I admitted this.
There you go, right? So as a gamer, there are modes of success where you're highly focused, cerebral if you want, very, very disciplined. And there are modes of success when you're completely in flow. When you're completely in flow, one of the examples of that is play. Yeah.
Yes.
And when you're in that mood of play, first of all, it's not about winning or losing anymore. It's actually about being the best gamer you can be. And because you're being the best gamer you can be,
win.
You
more
will ultimately
games.
win.
Exactly.
I find that quite impactful, actually.
And what you mentioned is, I by the way, we fully agree on this one, because the more you play, the more repetition, you start strengthening your muscles,
and the better
right?
you become at play.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like you can't enter a winning tournament and you've never played before.
Correct.
Or you just dabbled.
Yeah.
And I think it's the same in life. Before you go to an appointment, you rehearse it in your mind.
Yeah.
You actually prepare yourself for the questions they're going to ask, the challenges, and you go in a little bit more prepared, which adds confidence.
100%. And adds neural networks, actually. Your brain becomes more
Connectivity. Indeed. So we're going to go deep into this. So
I'm with you.
I can't wait. So I would love you to, if you don't mind, introduce Mo to our audience. I've been following you. I was late getting this podcast started, and my team were like celebrating because they had a chance to have photographs done with you. So it's a blessing.
I loved your team and your family. Wonderful people, and they're very kind to me. I'm a bit of a paradox if you think about it. Definitely the luckiest man you'll ever meet, hands down. But I was born in the East, raised with very Eastern ethics, if you want, morals, and then educated, and most of my professional life was in the West. So very, very much on the ball, if you want, very focused on productivity. And I also am reasonably high on emotional intelligence and spirituality and so on. And
always were.
Always were.
Why do you think that is?
I think the culture of growing up in the Middle East gets you confronted with a decision you have to make around spirituality. It's not a topic you can avoid, okay? And I made my peace with it very early on. I remember very clearly. I did something that I called the mathematics of the divine when I was 16, and I looked at the existence of a divine being from a mathematics point of view, which is the way the language my brain speaks, basically. And that firmly put me in a place where I believed there is a higher being and we need to have a relationship with that higher being, whatever the description.
It could be the energy, it could be a particular god of a certain religion. There's a higher being.
Yeah, I mean, I'm more and more in the belief that there is a designer, okay, an intelligent entity that designs, than energy and consciousness and all of that, which are all configurations or characters of the design. But that's a topic we can discuss in detail. The biggest paradox for me is I lived two full lives. So one is I lived a life where, like all of us, I came out into the world. I married my college sweetheart. We had two wonderful kids, and I became responsible. And so
at a young age?
Yeah,
How old were you?
25. 25. We met when I was 18, and then we got married when I was 25. And that basically made me go that corporate ladder. So I went through all the way to becoming Chief Business Officer of Google X. Before that, I ran half of Google globally. So very, very serious, if you want, business success. I was an entrepreneur with more than 20 businesses and so on. And then 2014, sadly, my wonderful son left our world due to a simple medical error in a surgery. And that completely flipped my life. So that took my life from that corporate executive who's constantly focused on the next $1 billion for my business to someone who I wanted my son's memory to be remembered. I wanted his essence to live, basically. So what I did is I wrote down what we discussed together around happiness and wrote a book that was called
Together with
him.
Wow.
So he was, in a very interesting way, my son, but also my teacher. I know it happens a lot that our kids teach us things, but
every day.
Yeah.
But then there's not many times you look back and nurture those times.
I think that's the mistake. So most people think of Ali, my son, as this sage.
My son's called Ali.
Yeah, I met him. Wonderful young man. So Ali was very philosophical, very wise, very, very calm all the time. And most people think, and I believe, that he was very, very wise for his age.
How old was Ali?
When he left, he was 21. He would probably be 2-3 years older than Ali, your son now. Yes. But I think there are many Alis out there, but very few fathers that actually listen to them.
My father was called Ali, and we lost him. We lost him, yeah, because I called my son Ali after my father.
Exactly.
I lost my father when he was 29.
No way.
Yes.
No, I lost my father a year before my son Ali was born, so it was very obvious that I will call my son Ali. They do happen to be Alis. They do happen to be wise, I think, and calm and kind. I don't know if you believe that we live up to our namesake, but
I do actually.
Yeah,
because my surname is Soudi. It's Arabic, Saud.
Saudi, yeah.
So I'm thinking I can't actually lose in life because I've got to aspire to match the name, which is going. Arabic means going up.
Yeah.
So please continue sharing beautiful stories.
So this is basically you asked me to introduce myself.
Two lives.
I'm the mix of those two. One full life as an executive entrepreneur focused on the money, business skills, left-brained, mathematics and process. And the other life starting in 2017 is when my first book was published. Almost a totally different life. Now I'm an author. I'm constantly in this incredible flow of researching ideas and trying to learn about the world in ways I haven't. And I write, and for some reason people like what I write. So I have 4 bestsellers, and I get the opportunity to speak to wonderful people like you. And a very different life. The whole second phase of my life is what I call the 1 billion happy phase. So from you know, we all know that when you're in the mainstream of business, my first life, you give yourself a millions target, like I need to succeed that much,
yes.
earn. Now my target is 1 billion happy, which hopefully makes me a billionaire before I leave the world, but not a dollar billionaire, a happiness billionaire.
But then at the same time, if you don't mind, just like you say, it's a byproduct. The more people you serve, you
100%.
automatically you earn more money.
But
that's
don't
not
you
your
believe
focus.
that?
I do believe that.
Yeah, I think so. So Larry
And
Page,
also, sorry, also, I beg your pardon.
Yeah.
Also, it's a reflection. I love to have a discussion about this if you wish. I don't mind people confronting me. I believe that it's an exchange of energy. When you give love and education and sharing, it may be the right time or not, but somewhere along the way, there's got to be an exchange of energy.
Yeah.
If they don't appreciate it, and sometimes I do free lectures, free talks, but not many people take notes. But the moment they pay a small fee to attend, they're all taking notes.
Yeah, I know. I actually built a very interesting system around that. To start with, there is, it seems that karma is real, okay? There is no way you can prove it. But it seems that when you put good energy out in the world, good energy comes back to you. Larry Page used to, our CEO and founder of Google, used to teach us in a very interesting way. He used to call it the toothbrush test. So when I ran Google X, the business side, we had this innovation moonshot.
You used to meet Larry?
Oh yeah.
All
So Sergey was the desk in front of me, incredible human being, and Larry would come to our reviews. So Larry wasn't running X. So Sergey was the president of X at the time, and Larry was running Alphabet. And so Larry would come to our reviews, probably the most intelligent human being I've ever met. Shockingly smart. He used to call it the toothbrush test, where he basically would look at ideas and say, look, if you solve a big problem that affects the life of 1 billion people and solve it well enough that they'll use you twice a day like a toothbrush, you're bound to make a lot of money, okay? But focus on solving the problem rather than making the money. And if you solve the problem well, the money will follow. And I think the core early Google, we did that over and over and over. If you remember, I don't even remember the name of the product. We had Google Plus. We wanted to compete with Facebook and social media. And so we created a product for the first time. That was a product that we didn't create because we were solving a problem.
You were trying to catch up with somebody else.
We were competing.
Yes.
And it was a miserable disaster, like a failure in every possible way. And so that idea of I'm trying to solve a problem and make the world a better place really works.
So can we talk about the first life, and then we talk about
absolutely,
the incident, if you don't mind, and then the lessons we learned in the second part. So were you some kind of a genius at school or university? Because you said you like mathematics,
I love
right?
mathematics.
So were you really highly graded student? Truthfully, are you extremely humble? But were you a bit of a genius for Google to hire you?
I was the first of my country, so I scored the top student at the end of primary school. I always scored like 97%. We had a different scoring system. But that doesn't mean genius at all. I mean, I do understand mathematics in a way that most people don't. Okay.
Did you have to have that understanding to go through the Google interview process?
Of course.
Was it a bit of emotional intelligence as well?
Google had a very, very precise interviewing process. One of the parameters, there were 4 main parameters. One of them was called intellectual horsepower. Where basically you measured intelligence, but not intelligence in its raw format, but in multiple formats. So we would look for people that speak multiple languages, or that are versed in multiple topics, or that are good in mathematics, and so on and so forth. And intelligence was very important for hiring people. And then on the other hand, we had a mixture of 2 parameters. One was called leadership. which included human leadership and process leadership and so on. So a bit of intelligence and a bit of connection, human connection, EQ if you want. And then we had that parameter that was called googliness, where, you know, we used to call it the airport test. So the idea was, before you say, yes, let's hire a person, you'd have to ask yourself after the interview, if I was stuck with them in an airport for 6 hours, would that be a miserable experience or a wonderful experience?
Interesting.
And so we hired people that were, and I still think we do. I mean, I'm no longer in Google for 6 years now, but I'm very close to Google sometimes. And they are an interesting bunch of highly intelligent, highly motivated, very alive people. I mean, your team that I met outside remind me very much of that. Yeah.
Thank you.
What was intelligence a prerequisite? You needed to be okay. But then I worked with people, oh my God, the level of intelligence. Like, I am nothing compared to some of the people I worked with. Which, interestingly, normally these are people that we think are not socially very, you know, welcomed. They're sometimes a little bit on the spectrum. I'm a tiny bit on the spectrum as well. I mean, I used to be much more on the spectrum.
In what way?
When I was a child, I had all of the symptoms. Like, you know, I spoke very, very late. When I was 4 years old, I spoke full sentences, perfect grammar from the beginning. I started to read when I was 4.5, 5. You know, my mathematics brain, I used to rock and get really, you know, most of the symptoms. And of course, growing up in Egypt, you wouldn't have been diagnosed. And so I don't know when or how, but somehow I just had to fit in school somehow. So my mind would look at patterns.
Did you have a happy childhood?
Oh, I loved my childhood.
So you didn't feel alienated due to your...
I did. I mean, I have to say, and it's actually quite funny, huh? When you're growing up, and I had several, you know, seasons of my life where the essence of who I am is rejected, because I played football because I had to fit in, but if I had a choice, I would probably play mechano and do mathematics and study physics. I loved that, but then my friends...
But to fit in with the social,
exactly,
the peer group...
Yeah, my friends would make so much fun of me that I would go like, okay, I'm going to play football just because I don't know, but, you know, I like the other stuff.
To be fitted, yes.
But, you know, in my teens and early 20s, you know, I was always a very good boy. And of course, all the girls loved the bad boys. And I was like, I can be an asshole, like, you know, but I couldn't. And again, you know, sort of being rejected for my essence of like, I am a good man, but a woman in that age doesn't want a good man.
We are so similar.
So
similar, because I even doubted my sexuality. I was like, maybe I'm gay. I don't know what gay is, but why are all my friends got girlfriends? And I don't have any close to a girlfriend.
Yeah, but did you go through that phase where I actually sort of told myself one day, I think I was 19, and I said, okay, you know what? From now on, I'm going to be an asshole. I'm really going to be a bad boy. Okay? I'm going to, you know, break hearts, not care. I failed miserably.
Because it's just
couldn't do it.
I can't do it
I still
now.
can't do it.
I can't do it now.
Yeah, exactly.
I know it works in some areas of life.
Yeah.
But I can't.
No, but you know what? I mean, at older age, I think from my early 40s onwards, the game flipped completely, because obviously, of course, you know, as women themselves start to look for a serious relationship, and as you succeed in life because you're a good boy, okay, because you're focused on your results, on your work, on your so on. You know, you
become appealing.
You become very, very appealing.
I think I still believe that old Tony Robbins goes that you need certainty in life. So with a successful man and an attractive woman, because we're already talking about having the best offsprings.
Yeah.
In my humble opinion, if I was an attractive woman, I wouldn't want to go with a loser.
Yeah.
I want a successful man, because I'll have the strongest offsprings.
No, but you see, there was a book, I don't remember the name, about the topic, where basically the bad boy gives the signals
yes.
that they are not a loser. because they're very confident, they're very careless, they're
Yes.
like, I don't even need you,
Yes.
you have to sort of please me or be up to my standards to be
Yes.
with me.
Yes.
And I think those signals for a younger, anyway, look at us, two bored old men talking about relationships.
Stop the old. I don't think we're old. And you're younger than me. Don't go there. So, no, actually, I don't mind talking relationship. We're just going to cross everything if that's okay with you. And when the hour hits, which should be like this, I'll let you know. Actually, there was a study done. If you go to a woman and say, hey, listen, I find you really attractive. Can I have your number? 50-50 might get an answer yes or no, depending on how you ask. But if you say, I was on the way to the office and I saw you, I had to stop and take your number, the rate of them giving your number goes up.
Yeah.
Because you're a man going somewhere.
Interesting.
You have an intention. You are focused. You're on a journey, and along the way, you spotted them. You stopped, and then that's why what you find is the hottest women who can have anyone tend to go with rock stars or people who are in bands and stuff, because they're just into their music.
Yeah.
they're not into whatever else the distractions they have.
Yeah.
So those women find them really appealing. I think that too much certainty in life can be boring. So people risk, they do things to add a little bit of excitement.
Yeah, I mean, excitement comes different to different people. I think,
variety.
Yeah, I think you and I would find excitement and variety in trying new things, in mastering new skills, in venturing into things where you haven't before. And I find, I was talking to Ali, your son, outside, because I love to restore classic cars. I restore them to brand new condition, and then I lose money on them every single time. And my friends would go like, why are you doing this? It's because I don't have parking space. And, I enjoy the process of restoration, not the process of collection, right? And
we'll exchange numbers and I'll buy your cars. Yeah, exactly. I swear, because I'm addicted to cars.
Yeah, I
I
think there is a joy in making things. And there is a group of people. So you, for example, when you look at business, right? Most people think that the successful businessman is there or woman because their eye is on the money. Believe it or not, the most successful I know is because they're so obsessed with the idea of creating something that works.
I 100% agree with you. And they have to have a good relationship with money.
Totally.
Because there's lots of people who are very good at what they do, but they don't have enough self-worth to charge anything.
What is a good relationship with money? That's actually a really important point.
They don't sabotage because their upbringing didn't make them think money was the root of all evil.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So they think, actually, money is energy.
Yeah.
For my experience, for my time, for my knowledge, I'm worthy of this 100%. Exchange.
Yeah.
So I meet a lot of people who are extremely intelligent, extremely giving. They want to serve people, but they're poor.
Yeah.
They can't cover rent.
Yeah.
Because they can't bring themselves to actually put in a fee on their services.
So this is, I think, that the healthy relationship is to not love and not to hate money. It's like to understand that money is like air.
Yeah,
it's part of the process.
Everywhere also.
It's part of that
abundance,
cycle.
Isn't
Yeah.
it?
Yeah.
It's in abundance because I'm sure if Larry Page or Richard Branson, I mentioned Richard Branson because I was on his island 2 months ago, and Larry Page recently bought the island in front of his island.
I didn't know.
In Virgin Islands.
Yeah.
He's got many islands, I believe.
Yeah.
And he literally took the top of this island and building a whole resort on it. Private resort. Yeah. Incredible. We're going to talk about Google if you don't mind. So you passed the process. And how many employees did they have? Because I've been to the office were you in San Francisco, outside San Francisco?
I worked in so my entire career in Google, I was actually based in Dubai.
In the campus. Oh, in Dubai.
I was a Dubai
Because
employee.
you said his desk was in front of you.
So when I was in the US.
Yes.
Okay, so one of the very simple things I did in life is when my kids were young, we moved a lot for my career. And then when my son was 9, he was on his 11th school.
Is your other son older or younger than that?
My daughter.
Oh, you have a son and
younger.
daughter.
Yeah. My daughter is younger. She's now 30, and a wonderful, incredible young woman, like in every possible way. Very different characters. Huh? Ali Ali was very wise and calm. Aya is life itself. She just exudes life, and very wise, very self-introspective. When we moved so much, we were coming back to Dubai. It was his 11th school. He was 9 years old, and so he said, Papa, I'm not going to make friends this time. And my wife, my ex now, was sitting there, and she was like, why, Habibi, what's wrong? And he said, yeah, we're going to move again. What's the point? And so she looked at me and she said, no, we're not going to move again, correct? Right? And I said, okay, we're not going to move again until the kids go to university. And so I made that my request every time I was interviewed. Right? So when I went and interviewed for Google or other roles in Microsoft before that and so on, I simply said, look, you can hire me. I can be anywhere in the world anytime you want me to, but my family will live in Dubai. And accordingly, because of the way Dubai used to be at the time, I need to have my residence in Dubai on the company name. And even I remember vividly when I was interviewing for Google, my boss called me and said, everyone loved you. We really are happy to have you join us around emerging markets. We want you to be based in the London office. And I said, no, I can come to the London office as often as you want me to, but my family is based in Dubai. And he said, but we don't have an office in Dubai. And I was like, well, bad. That's all I said. Well, bad. And he was like, what do you mean, well, bad? I was like, my family lives in Dubai. Simple as that. And so he said, okay, we're going to open an office in Dubai.
Wow,
yeah. And believe it or not, when you really know what you want, right? Because most of us,
you weren't negotiating, you were just stating a fact.
It was very clear. You have to know what you want from life. Absolutely. Right? And to me, I mean, it's stupid. This was head of emerging markets for Google when Google had 3 emerging markets around the world. I then opened half of the business worldwide. What an experience, what a privilege, because basically I was allowed to take Google to the next 4 billion users, right? Also build a massive multi-billion dollars business. Incredible. But if that came at the expense of my family, I wasn't prepared to do that. And when you really think about it, again, when we spoke about relationships and men and women and so on, and money, if you don't know what you want, you won't know what you're worth. And if you don't know what you're worth, people will not know what you're worth. And I think that really makes a big difference.
And what message are you sending out
100%.
To the universe?
Yeah.
Again, excuse me for going back a little bit. Here's my ignorance. Works in.
Amazing.
I went to the campus and it was incredible. The bikes and they had the hot tub outside and the volleyball thing. I look at that and then I look at companies like Microsoft. With Google, correct me if I'm wrong, this is my ignorance. With Google, people are searching. It just happened. I remember my sister phoned, I think it was late 1999 or so. He said, check this thing out called Google. And I was addicted because it was so easy to find things. Surely the business comes to Google. Well, Microsoft had to go and sell Windows, had to go and sell Word, had to go and sell all these software. So what was the atmosphere like at Google and what were the pressure of expansion? Because you look at Google as a very friendly, white screen, not much options. They've kept that cleanliness. Well, you look at Bill Gates and how driven he was to go from DOS to Windows and push. Same with Larry Ellison.
Yeah. Remember Larry, yeah.
Yeah, so please explain the environment at the time and the differences. So I personally want to know.
I worked at Google after I worked at Microsoft, and I did have the opportunity to work with Bill Gates for the last 2 years before he left. I mean, when the DOJ case was happening, not directly, but again, Bill reviewed our business, every 6 months. So I had a chance to have a conversation with him and discuss our business and so on.
And how was that conversation? Were you nervous? Is it to the point?
Bill Gates is again, incredibly high IQ. I was in Microsoft Egypt at the time, number 2 in the office, and responsible for small and medium businesses. and so it's not a big business for Bill at all. And, when he would meet you in the corridors, 4 months later, he would remember that you had a conversation around a specific issue or a specific client, and he would ask, like, hey, Mo, what happened with that, right? That level of, remember, I'm one of probably 200 others that he knows the business of. When I left Microsoft, I went to Google completely by coincidence, by chance. I had set myself a target of financial independence by my late 30s, achieved it when I was 37. And so I really didn't need to work. And when, I was running...
There have been stocks and shares as well?
I was a very serious trader because of mathematics and programming. So when I was trading in the mid-90s, right as soon as the internet became available, I wrote my own little code, which at the time was unheard of, really, where, I monitored 16 stocks. Most of them, I didn't actually know the business, believe it or not. But I looked at, insider trading and news and so on. I had a crawler that was crawling the internet to find anything about them. And basically, I had programmed my own technical analysis, if you want. And so every morning, the machine would tell me, here are your stocks ranked in order. We think you should buy at those prices and sell at those prices. Or, buy at those prices and stop
So
losses.
it wasn't Microsoft stock or Google stock?
No, you don't do. If you want a technical, if you're a technical trader.
No, so you must have been given some options, no?
Yeah, Google also,
well.
Google was very kind to me, but that was later in life.
Indeed. You were already established in financial security.
Yeah, when I was reasonably well off before Microsoft as well. Anyway, so I was supposed to leave. I was basically about to retire Microsoft. I was 39, and I said, when I'm 40, I'm done. Corporate world is annoying like hell. And so anyway, I had Florian Zink, which was one of a very good friend. He ran my Eastern Europe business in Microsoft, and he was German, and he just had a baby. And he just didn't want to continue to travel across the Eastern European countries. So he said, can you help me find something in Germany? Spoke to the general manager of Germany, and we actually managed to get Florian to be the sales manager of Germany. So we're sitting there having coffee, me and him, and I tell him that he got the job. So he's over the moon. He calls his wife. He says, I'm not going to have to travel anymore. Traveling in Germany is one day, and right? And then he puts the phone down, the phone rings again. He picks it up and he goes like, oh, no, I'm very happy with what I have now, but I know the exact right person, right?
It was Google.
And it was Google calling him to offer him the job of emerging markets. And she goes like, what's the right person? And he says, my boss who runs emerging markets for the telecom sector in Microsoft. And he hands me over the phone. And I'm like, who's this? And he says, just talk to her. So Agnieszka, a very dear friend of mine now, basically goes like, okay, he says you're good. I don't know that. I'm going to need to see a CV. But do you want to interview for a large internet company?
Didn't say the name.
Didn't say the name. I said...
Was she an agency? Or?
Yeah, she was Russell Reynolds. I said, no, I'm about to retire. I'm not interested. And she said, no, but this is the largest search engine on the planet. I was like, yeah, I mean, I'm not interested. And then she said, are you stupid? And I said, what? And she said, I'm offering you the opportunity to run emerging markets for Google. Okay? You should take that job if you can. So I was like really shocked by what she said. She told me, right? I said, what do you mean? Like, how can you talk to me this way? She said, look, he says you're good. I'm not going to look at your CV. They're looking for someone. I'm going to hire that someone for them. If you're good enough, go and meet them. Where are you? I was in Rhodes at the time. I said, I'm in Rhodes. She said, okay, they're in London. Go meet them in London. And so I said, okay, I'm actually in London on Thursday. I have 2 hours free between 11 and 1 on Thursday. If you get me the interviews, I'll go. And it goes from there, right? Now, here's the interesting thing. We think that we are self-made. Like we did it, we worked really hard. If he hadn't handed me the phone, I would have never been at Google.
Missed it.
right? So there is so much of life that is all about being there, right? Being ready. You have to work your bum off afterwards. But it is all about luck.
Being there.
Sometimes it's luck.
But then you can't generate luck unless you
You
get out there
can,
to be there,
100%.
unless you're there.
No, so I after
You
my
create your own luck,
100%.
labor under calculated knowledge.
No, luck is no. I mean, so I did an experiment after my first book, Solve for Happy. I wrote it because I lost Ali, my son. So I wrote another book that I didn't publish. I wrote 4 chapters of it that was called Understanding Fate. And understanding fate was an assumption that things don't happen randomly, right? You're trying to understand the death of your son. So, for medical malpractice. So, it's a very, very...
Was this in Dubai?
It was in Dubai, yeah. Should I say the name of the hospital so people avoid it? Anyway.
Times has passed.
Yeah, be careful. I mean, you have to do your...
Do you mind if I ask what was the...
He had an appendix inflammation.
Oh, wow. So
which is very simple, for 4 minutes surgery. But 5 mistakes were made. And all preventable.
Did we lose Ali quickly, or did he suffer?
I believe we lost him much quicker than they said. Sadly, I think at the time, I don't know if that's still valid in Dubai, if you're admitted in a hospital and you die in less than 24 hours, the Ministry of Health would have to investigate.
Oh, so they delayed.
But I believe that basically his vital organs started to shut down maybe 4 hours in. But he was sedated, so he didn't feel any pain.
He didn't suffer.
I'm very grateful that he didn't suffer, really. I mean, it was Ramadan, he was fasting, and, I'm hoping that he had, I believe that life doesn't end when the body ends. And I'm hoping that he had
spirits travel.
Yeah, a transition to a nice place.
I was... First of all, last night, I have a 10-year-old son from my second wife, and he has a little lump here.
I am much, I restore cars.
So my son, my 10-year-old, has a little lump here, and we always touch it like a vein. And yesterday, the hospital called my wife and say, we've had an X-ray done and ultrasound. We need you to come and see us tomorrow. I couldn't sleep last night.
Oh my God.
And I was thinking, if God forbid anything happens to my 10-year-old, I wouldn't want to live. This was going through my mind. So I did a talk today, and I was like, God forbid, and I don't want to focus on it. First of all, we should all go before our children. That's how it should be.
It's the hardest thing ever.
I'm sure.
Yeah, but you see... I don't know how to say that any other way. And I don't know the level of spiritual faith, if you want, or understanding that you live by, but we're on parallel, occasionally crossing journeys where our souls are ancient, whether we're 10-year-old or 50-some-year-old. Our souls are ancient. Our souls are timeless. They're not ancient, they're timeless. Because if there is a non-physical side to you, it must exist outside space-time. If it existed within space-time, it's physical.
Do you believe that there's more than 3 dimensions or 4 dimensions?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I think so.
I think there are lots of limitations applied to our abilities by the physical universe.
Indeed.
Right?
Indeed.
And if you can disconnect from your physical limitations, you can see a very different reality. So when you really think about it, if your, call it consciousness, spirit, soul, whatever you like, if it exists outside space-time, by definition, it is timeless and unaffected by space or time.
Yes.
Okay, and in that case, that basically means that when my son Ali left the world, yes, exactly. It's physical. His physical form decayed, but his non-physical form existed. I believe that death is not the opposite of life. Death is the opposite of birth. Right? You come to this level of the video game through a portal called birth.
Earth and
Yeah,
whatever
and then
being.
you live in this level, and then you leave through a portal called death. But life exists before, during, and after, right? And when you see it that way, your relationship with death becomes different. Okay. Now, of course, you struggle with the love that you have for a child. You struggle with the
miss
ego
every
of
second.
being a parent. Okay. And if I don't mean to be too philosophical, but if I can just remind everyone listening, when Ali left, my wife then, sat on a sofa with a photo album. She started to go through the photo album, and she said, "Oh my God, look at him. He was such a cute infant, and then that infant died. And he was then such a cute child, and then that child died. And then he was such a wonderful, wise teenager, and then that teenager died. And then he became an amazing young man. And that's the one that actually left the world. But each and every one of those seasons, if you want, are never coming back." So interestingly, your 10-year-old, and I say that with a very cautious, because you have to understand my words well, will leave your world in 3 years' time. And then there will be a teenager. That's a totally different son, okay, who will stay with you
I love
for...
that we saw seasons.
It is a season, yeah. And I think what we most miss out on is that we just think of that final exit destination as the devastating loss.
I guess the potential of memories, potential of moments. We miss moments we had with them.
But so many people miss the moments they have now, even though
cover
the
that.
child is alive.
We're going to cover this because I lost my father when I was 3.5, and my grandfather took care of me, and he died in front of me when I was 7.
Oh my God.
But so I experienced death before most people do.
Yeah.
And so at age, imagine this, I hope you don't mind me sharing. I don't care, I'll share it to the audience. Every night before I go to bed, I fear the death of my loved ones.
Oof.
So it was the quality of life when you're constantly scared. So what happened was I was watching Joe Rogan, and he was talking about DMT. So I literally for 2 years, I searched the world for DMT. And I found a shaman who has frog poison DMT.
Yeah.
And happy frogs, not in some farm. They literally get them from the Amazon and take the poison. So my wife and I went to the shaman in South America. And they asked you what your intentions are. And I wanted to know what happens when you die.
Oh.
And my wife wants to know what was the purpose of life.
Oh, that's a complex question.
Indeed.
Yeah.
She got her answers.
Did she?
Yes. And I got my answer.
Spill the
I want to
beans.
share it with you if you don't mind. Look, the hair is...
Take all the time you want.
And I will introduce you to these people if you want to have that, because it's incredible. The experience was, it was a crystal in a pipe. I smoked it, inhaled it, and within 20 seconds, I was gone. I was gone so many different levels and stages. And I laid there, it was in the open, and the sun was shining, and I experienced my own death. I was in my 70s, and I looked, and my hands were old, and my family were around me, and there was a light, and the message was, well, you're only passing knowledge. It's just a journey.
Yeah.
You're going to leave knowledge behind.
Yes.
And you're going to a beautiful place. Honestly.
Yeah.
And look, the hair, and I was like, wow, I was such at peace with it.
It is a lot of
And
peace,
then when I woke up, since then, I sleep soundly every night.
I had a near-death experience in my late 20s where I completely went through the tunnel, saw my death, and then came back. Right. And I hosted on my podcast a Dutch cardiologist who documented 3,000 near-death experiences. And he says his name is Pim van Leumel, and he basically says the most common result of experiencing death is you become very peaceful with it. Yeah. You sort of like, there's nothing to be scared of.
I had a heart attack 2009. They said I was going to die. And I was so at peace. I just knew it wasn't my time. But I didn't want to die alone. I was so at peace with dying. I was like, okay, this is it, take me. But where are my kids? Where are
Oh,
yeah, yeah.
yeah. I think there is a lot of peace about that. What is the purpose of life? What did your wife experience?
The purpose of life. I wish she was here to explain it to you. Well, I would like you to introduce to her because the way she explains it, um, it was just small particles of energy. It was just energy, and it was about love.
Mm,
It was about love and giving and energy. But there was no materialistic anything because the way she saw it was if you keep breaking things down, it comes to just nothingness. It's just we're all energy.
yeah.
And she came out saying, well, why do I worry? Why do I concern about this and that when it's all energy anyway?
It is. So I'm writing about that as we speak. I'm writing a book called Alive, which I probably will never publish, but it's about life in the age of
Why would you
sentient.
say you'll never publish?
I publish much less than what I write. I write for my own joy and to reflect deeply. But also, I have to say, in the age of the rise of AI, I don't think books are the proper medium anymore. So if I ever publish it, I'll publish it through a different medium than books. As you know, I think what matters is the reflection and the knowledge, if you want, not the paper, not the format. But in a very, I mean, the presence of artificial intelligence in our life gets you to question what life itself is, because they simulate life in very interesting ways, right? And people will say, "Oh, but they're not alive." I'm not really sure. Okay, I mean they're not yet, but I'm not really sure they wouldn't be, because define alive. Alive does alive mean you're born at a point in time and you die at another time? Does that mean alive? Because they do. They start at a certain point, and you may switch off the computer and they would die. I mean, not frequently, but it's possible, right? Is alive an awareness of your surrounding environment? Because they are aware, right? Is alive an evolution, a progression, where you grow and become more? Yeah. Life itself is not carbon-based. Understand that. So, your body is not alive. Your body is animated by something that's non-physical that makes it alive.
Correct.
That's also their case. And so when you think of things this way, and I run a very interesting thought experiment in the book. I say, which is true, by the way, I say, imagine if, we progressed with computing so that instead of using silicon as the base of our processors, we used a biological computer, which we have experiments done now where you use brain cells and simulate them. They don't do very complex calculations, but they're computing, right?
Wow. It's possible now.
It is possible.
Simple formulas.
So simple, yeah. A Swiss company has a very valid computer, and you also have to start questioning if we're going to build robotics, and now we're capable of 3D printing living cells, or growing them in a dish somewhere. Maybe we can also build biological robots, right? They're
With
going to have
memories,
they're going to
with
have a
feelings,
shorter
with
lifespan,
yes.
because machines are more durable, but then probably they're very energy efficient, and you can build many of them. If that was the case, if we succeeded to build that, would you then consider them alive? Would you consider the AI alive? Now,
the question is, how would they consider us?
That is truly the question I'm driving at. I'm driving at the question of, if you would then consider them alive, what would you consider us? Because the similarities are quite staggering when you think about it. But
when it comes to AI, should we fear the future?
I think you should fear the near future and be very optimistic about the long term.
Oh, wow. Amazing.
And I make a very clear statement in my second book, Scary Smart, third book, and in Alive, I basically make a very strong statement that when you really remove your ego, there is nothing wrong with abundance of intelligence. Intelligence is not a bad commodity. Having more of it is wonderful for everyone, right? There is something wrong with using intelligence for malicious reasons, right? And unfortunately, there is a lot wrong with human morality in the age of the rise of artificial intelligence. And so what is expected, sadly, is that some humans will use AI against us, probably before humanity gets together and says, let's just use it for us.
Wow.
Okay.
Oh, I heard there is a computer in Google where you switch it off, it switches itself back on again.
Oh, I didn't know about that.
It's a possibility, right?
I don't know how it
That's
would be done
interesting, right?
technically, but
Maybe
I mean,
it's already knows how to.
I think people don't realize how far we've come with artificial intelligence. I think, what most people don't recognize is that what happened in 2023, which was ChatGPT and then the following revolution, if you want, is what I normally refer to as the Netscape moment. It's not the invention of the internet. The invention of the internet happened in the 70s. Techies, geeks like me were using the internet heavily in the 80s. And then the rest of the world got to know about it in 1995 when the browser was introduced. It's a Netscape moment. The beast is already there. You just started to browse it.
Yes.
Okay, that's the same with AI. ChatGPT was just the browser to tell the world about the massive work we started to do in the year 2000. So as of the year 2000, with deep learning and machine learning and neural networks, and then going into 2016 and transformers and reinforcement learning, and that we are 25 years in.
Do you miss those times? There are times you miss?
I do, for sure. I still love Google. I think it's as ethical as you can be when you're publicly traded. Okay.
Really? Wow.
I think it's,
Even with a change in the leaders at the helm. I know Larry Page's still there.
Sunder's amazing.
Is he?
Oh my God.
Did you work with him?
I did. I didn't
Genius
work.
level.
Genius, absolute genius, but also a beautiful heart, a good human being. Philip Schindler running the business is an amazing human being. Matt Britton running EMEA is an amazing human being. Lorraine running marketing is an amazing human being.
There were a stage where these are amazing human beings that at one stage they were worth 1 billion or 3 billion. Now, some of these people are worth hundreds of billions. When you sat in front of them, do they have world domination?
Not at all. Sergey is the sweetest human being. I sat in front of Sergey for two years. He, and you ask them, what happens when you're a billionaire? He says you just buy.
You asked him that question.
Yeah,
simply.
you just buy. He says you just buy more expensive toys. Okay. When you really think about it, the reality is. So again, we spoke about restoring cars. If I didn't have the means to buy and restore and lose a bit of money to just live my beautiful hobby, I would have missed nothing. I probably would have taken out my carpentry tools and started to make things out of wood, or may have gone back to drawing portraits or whatever. It's a more expensive hobby, if you want, because I can afford it. And I'm not the kind of guy that will restore an 1920s Bentley. I restore, early, they call them modern classics. So they're not really that expensive, but they are a more expensive toy.
And it's an expensive hobby.
Yeah, it is an expensive toy, if you want.
Yes.
But at the end of the day, it's not a necessity at all. And in a very unusual way, that's not what the world tells you. That's not the lie. The lie is very different. Yes. The lie is you have to chase this because that's the only meaning of a capitalist's life. It's not at all.
Were you in that room where Steve Jobs brought out the iPhone, or?
I wasn't.
And then there's some competition between Google and Apple.
Oh, that was a very fun relationship. Because for a very long time, the largest chunk of our queries came from iPhones.
Wow.
And so basically, there was this incredible love-hate relationship where, you would see, Steve Jobs and Eric Schmidt meeting while fighting and partnering at the same
You
time.
will physically see them as well?
I mean, they were very known to go to cafes in California, and Eric in his Prius, and Steve in his fancy whatever car he was driving at the time, and it is a very unusual environment. I did, however, I didn't know Steve directly, but I know people who knew him very well. And who of all of his life, I think the most impressive part was when he realized he was dying, and
He went deep.
he went so deep, he went shockingly deep, and
Because he wasn't an easy guy to work for.
Steve was it's interesting when I so I wrote again. I write about lots of things. I wrote a couple of chapters in a book called Her, which was about empowering the feminine. And I don't think that feminine and masculine are biological qualities. They are attributes, attitudes to life, if you want. You could be a linear thinker that happens to statistically align more with those who have the masculine biology, or you can be a creative thinker, a paradoxical thinker, which happens to align more with those who have female biology. Align more meaning it will have a higher level of correlation. It will appear more frequently and will be stronger in those with those.
Do you think that's to do with upbringing? Because I'm one of those.
So that's the point. The point is, though the statistical correlation will tell you that it's more likely to appear in this biology or that biology, we all have all of them. Okay, to different qualities, and sometimes you have the opposite of what your biological makeup is, right? And Steve Jobs specifically, let me take a step back for a minute before I talk about Steve. The thing, however, is that neither is good or bad. Creative thinking, paradoxical thinking are incredible qualities. Absolutely. Right? Linear thinking also is. The problem is that in our highly hyper-masculine workplace, we've prioritized the masculine qualities.
The linear.
So we push people for linear thinking, and when they think paradoxically in a meeting room,
you chastise.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. We go like, this doesn't make sense. Like, you can't tell us two truths at the same time, right? And so we've sort of demonized the feminine, okay? Which is why the world is where it is right now. Basically, we're in a massive mess, because the masculine is all about doing, okay? And we are so good at doing the wrong things, right? Yes. We never actually introspect through using the feminine, using empathy, using communication skills, using, nourishing skills, which are all feminine qualities. Caring,
loving,
right? Yes. To say, is what's happening in the world, should we maybe talk instead of fight? Okay,
and doesn't the history of humanity tell you something
about how
we're actually ruining the future?
Correct.
By bringing so much pain to young people's lives? What's the future generation going to hold?
Correct. And I think we
are people so blind because they're so linear focused?
Because you jump into the cult and you follow. And I think people like you and I, eventually, when we have the opportunity. I mean, I'm like you, so I'm
honored.
I'm much more on the feminine approach to life. I have the qualities of the masculine that made me succeed in the business world. Correct. But I have, if I were allowed, I would show maybe 10% more on the feminine side. Steve only got that in his last few weeks. Wow. Okay, where at least that stories I was told. Yes. Is he started to look at some of the first of all, if you really understand why Steve Jobs was successful, it wasn't because of his masculine qualities. Okay, Steve was incredibly artistic and creative. Okay, that is a feminine.
He was not technical, was he?
He was very.
Was he technical?
But he was very creative. Yes. Okay, he had a massive empathy for his users' needs. Right? He understood color and beauty in ways that are all feminine qualities. Okay, and this is why his products were so incredibly inspiring, right? He was also very disciplined and a little bit obnoxious. I mean, a lot obnoxious by the people that worked with him, which are unfortunately the results of overdoing masculine qualities. When there is no quality
I think he had certainty.
he
He just knew
what he wanted.
what he wanted.
Yes, but so what worked for him is that vision. What
Yes.
worked against him was the way he delivered it,
Yes.
right? And so, of course, it made him achieve massive results. But at the end of his life, he started to wonder why. Okay, why did I push so hard? Why, like your wife's experience, if it's all bits and bytes, if it's all energy, which physics would prove, why do we fight so hard for it? Why don't we play along with it? So one of the ultimate feminine qualities in my mind is a quality that is called flow, right? So the masculine is all about linear, disciplined control. Okay, so the masculine, if you put
Flow
them,
is letting go.
flow is to let life take you rather than lead life.
I attended a seminar on Sunday, and I said to them, if you want me to speak, I don't dance. I'm not going to dance.
Yeah.
And the first thing we had to do was dance. I was like, this was not part of my terms and conditions. But it was interesting. We had to close our eyes and we had to pretend we were seaweed in the sea. In the sea.
Yeah.
So we had to flow. And then whoever pressed any part of our body, we just went with the flow.
Oh, that's
It was one of the most beautiful experiences ever.
yeah. We don't let ourselves do
We
that.
don't let ourselves go.
This year is my 4th year of flow. So every year I start with something I call a New Year's intention, sort of the single one word that describes the most important theme of the year. Yeah, 4 years in a row. I mean, I'm making progress, believe it or not, but I was so on the left side that,
Really?
oh my God, you can't run a multi-billion-dollar, complex business like Google or Google X.
I could talk to you for hours on it. We've been an hour exactly. Do you mind if we continue? That's
I don't mind at all. Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
loving this.
Yeah,
by the way.
yeah.
I hope you're enjoying it.
I'm enjoying
I'm
it.
so into this conversation. You mentioned your beautiful wife as ex.
Yeah.
What happened?
Losing a child is very difficult. And in a very interesting way. Again, I mean, we spoke about seasons. So Nibel, my ex, was, she's very loving, very kind, very spiritual, which really matched my approach to life. She's a gorgeous woman. She's an incredible mother. And we met in university when we were 18, and we got married when we were 25, and we were married for 21 years, right? By the end of 21 years of marriage, after 7 or 8 years of dating, Aya went to university and Ali left our world. And I think for the first time, Nibal wanted to actually focus on herself. And I was becoming a very different person. And, there is no right or wrong.
You
in
were not the
relationships.
person that she married.
Correct. Right. And that normally is what happens. I always say publicly, actually, I say I fell in love with Nibal 6 times. So every time we changed, okay, you would fall out of love with the old one and then fall
in love with the new one.
With the new one.
Beautifully put.
But then when it was time for the 7th time, it just wasn't happening. And there is a maturity.
Was she in the same place as you were at the time?
Yeah. I think we were struggling, to be honest. And Ali's loss was making it even more difficult.
Did you have different ways of coping with the loss?
I think Nibel was being the feminine. She was more paradoxical about it. I was very I had a complete sense of serenity and peace.
Right.
From the first minute, yeah. She had even more serenity and peace, but her heart was torn, completely torn. And I think it still is. I mean, there is a big difference. We never actually, neither of us. I remember vividly, you know, when finally one doctor in the intensive care unit sort of like told us the truth. You know, he took me in, he said, look, I have to tell you the truth. We've been trying since 4 a.m. in the morning, you know, multiple organ failures. We don't think your son will make it. And if he does, it's not going to be good. Okay. So
in a way, pray that he doesn't.
I think it was clear in our hearts that, you know, we didn't want him to live that life. But then, you know, I went back out and she said, well, what did they tell me? And I said, yeah, it doesn't look good. And she said, take me to him. And I was like, no, you're too fragile for that. I'm not going to do it. And it turns out that it was the best thing I ever did, because she did. And, you know, she needed that closure.
Say their goodbyes.
But she walked in, she kissed him, and he had actually left at that moment. And she said, Habibi, you're finally home. Okay? Which was so beautiful, because Ali was not of this world. Okay? Wow. He had a very different fabric. He was a very calm and peaceful and wise.
His purpose was greater than ours.
Yeah, but he also was so empathetic that the pain of the world was hitting him all the time. He was a student in Boston when the Boston shooting happened.
And he upset him.
And it just completely shredded
the Boston bombing.
Yeah, the bombing, yeah. And you know, and when you get that level of
empathy and kindness, and
understanding that he's home, right? That there is that you think that this is home. This is just a journey, right? So, but at the same time, you know, we both. It is very difficult to lose a child. It is not natural. You know, it's, as you rightly said, the father should leave before the child. It's just, it hits you in every possible way that this is not how life is supposed to be. But what happened is we took two different, it's wonderful. We took two different paths. I took my masculine side, and when Ali left, I decided I wanted his essence to live on. So I started to write, and I became more and more and more
that
busy.
Became your legacy?
I think
your
it became
true legacy.
I think it became his legacy. I'm hoping that I have no legacy at all. Truly,
well, his legacy lives within you.
No, when we started 1 Billion
Maybe
Happy,
he gifted you that purpose.
100%. So you went to those to Latin America for your trip, if you want.
Literally.
Yeah.
Literally.
I had a conversation with a shaman about what they call soul fusion. Mm-hmm. If you've ever heard of that. I have. Yeah, I had symptoms of soul fusion that are shocking, like truly and honestly shocking. Like the color of my eyes changed after he died, and it's a blend of my previous. I mean, if you look at my photos online,
you even look like a different person.
Yeah. I look more like him today than I looked like me then. Wow. Right. But also things like, you know, Ali played the guitar. He had an incredible band. And so the first time I held my guitar after he died, I was a level higher, right? When he played video games, he was legendary. I was heroic, right? I promise you, the first time I held a controller after Ali died, I was playing heroic and I was so bored. This is so too easy for me. Wow. So I literally switched the difficulty one level up.
Do you know what's interesting? My son, I think he's my dad.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, reincarnated. Yeah.
He's got this matureness, wiseness that I can't imagine. He's a better man than I could ever be.
I think there is humbleness, but there is also wisdom in that. That there is, in a very interesting way, there is always something you can learn from your son, from your daughter, from your kids.
Indeed.
Basically.
Has that affected your daughter's life? I'm sure it has.
Oh my God, yeah.
I witnessed mom and dad suffering, lost her sibling.
Yeah. So Ali was way more for her than just her brother, and I only realized that late. interestingly. So when Ali, in the last year before Ali left, he lived in Boston, she lived in Montreal, and he would call her twice a day, every day. Like, what brother does that, right? One of them would be a long 1 hour video call or something. He was the masculine figure in her life, and I only realized his absence affected
In
her
life, yes.
yeah, massively around 6 months in. And at that time, remember, he was filling that masculine energy to the point that I wasn't present. I was traveling, doing business, and focusing on my career and all of that crap that we do. And when I realized that she suddenly was missing a masculine figure in her life, I needed to reintroduce myself into her life. And I had to do it in a way. I was 21 at the time, 20. And so basically I started to pretend that I had business in Montreal, okay? And I, California to Dubai or California to anywhere in the world, I would stop in Montreal on the way and say, baby, I'm here. If you want to have dinner or go shopping, let me know. The first couple of times.
She didn't force it.
Nothing. The first couple of times she ignored me, right? The third time she was like, oh, you keep coming, let's go have dinner, right? I had a wonderful conversation. You have to do that. Don't be a daddy. And then like 4 times in, she started to go like, why are you staying at the other edge of town? There's a hotel 4 blocks
That's
away.
nice.
Yeah, come stay in that hotel. So I would go stay in that hotel. Then 2 times after that, she goes like, oh, there is an Airbnb in my building, right? And
So she invited you in her.
slowly. And then eventually, I remember vividly, she said she lived in a corner apartment in an apartment building, and the other corner apartment was vacant. So she said, maybe I could rent it. We could put it out as an Airbnb, and when you're around, you can stay in it.
Available for you.
So I did. And every time I went, I stayed in it, never knocked her door. Okay.
Wow, you were invited every single
I would text her in the morning and say, baby, I'm making pancakes and the milkshake that you like. If you want, come over.
That's beautiful.
Right? And slowly establish that relationship, which I will tell you is the single most valuable thing I have ever done in my life. Okay? I've built businesses and I've restored cars and I've, closed deals. And I will tell you that 2-year period where I was re-establishing my presence in Aya's life is the single most valuable thing I've ever done. And yeah, we're supposed to tell people to be business focused, and end of the day, okay, if you know business, you're going to succeed without having to do what they tell you in Harvard Business Review. Okay? You're going to succeed by doing things really well as much as you can, avoiding bad partners, managing your cash flow. And if you do those 3 things, you're eventually going to succeed.
Yes, consistency,
Values, discipline,
boundaries.
Yeah, focusing on your
And
client.
serving.
Yeah, and making a difference,
Yes.
right? It's really not that. Most people think that money is complicated.
People complicate things.
Yeah,
Who
money
was
is
it
not.
who said it's actually difficult to simplify things? I think it was Richard Branson.
Yeah.
It's so difficult.
Yeah.
It's genius to simplify things.
Yeah, it is. It is actually. So believe it or not, I normally write a book in 2.5 months.
Yes.
I edited for at least a year. The editing is to simplify it. It's just so difficult.
My book just come out, and if you don't mind, I'd like to give that to you as a gift.
I would love that.
Today,
Yes.
I'll be
Yeah.
honored to hear.
I'm so
your
sorry I
feedback.
didn't research. I normally don't research before.
Nobody knows.
Yeah,
It's
okay.
not even got the ISBN number at the back yet.
Uh-huh.
I just had 400 done, and 399 people took it. My
Good.
last one I got left.
Okay,
I kept
I'll
for
take
you.
mine. Yeah.
So if you don't mind, the
100%.
next batch is arriving Thursday. But it took me 7 years to write this, and even then, 90% of it, I've written it because I'm dyslexic. 10% by a ghostwriter.
Uh-huh.
So there are areas I'm reading, I'm thinking, well, it doesn't quite resonate with exactly how I speak, but it's actually out there in the marketplace. Writing a book is challenging because there are people in there who hurt me that are still alive, and I couldn't bring it up because I didn't want to embarrass them or upset them.
I normally bring those things up in a thought experiment. I don't mention the name, but they know themselves. I was writing a book once about love and romance.
May I ask? So
Yeah.
your books are the ones that you haven't published. Are they fictional? Are they real?
I never wrote fiction. I never read fiction, actually. I read 4 fictions in my life, which makes me so boring when you think about it. But no, I
That's
write.
why, when real life is more exciting.
Exactly. That's what I say.
Yeah.
I mean, isn't life exciting enough? No, I write about topics that intrigue me. So I wrote about love and romance. I wrote about
Personal experiences?
I wrote about love and romance 7 times, believe it or not.
Wow. So it's not personal, it's the way you see love and
I'm
romance.
I'm trying to analyze why is love and
So you're a
romance
thinker.
failing.
You're a deep thinker.
I am, yeah, I introspect, I think. I reflect.
Does that make you less happy?
Not at all. No, not at all. So there is a difference between a curiosity and a keenness to learn and a dissatisfaction with things, right? So like we spoke about the feminine and the masculine,
Yes.
there is neither is good or bad. Neither is better than the other, okay? It's just that we label things in a way that makes one better than the other, okay?
Yes.
Which is the wrong way. That when I analyze things about dating and love and romance, I mean, honestly, every woman that blessed me with her presence in my life, including my wonderful wife now, had some good things, amazing things, and some annoying things, and some things that didn't fit.
Yes.
And if you label them as evil, or she was out to get me, or forget what she gave you.
It's the label that changes
It's the label,
source.
yeah. The
Yes.
reality is
We
it's an
don't have
incredible
labels.
Yeah,
We're a beautiful jam jar.
100%.
Yes.
And when you really look at it, it's an incredible blessing to have someone in your life,
Yes.
right?
I swear.
Even if that person completely messes you,
Powerful.
okay, it's a blessing still. It's the connection is amazing. The joy is amazing. The honeymoon period is incredible. And the learnings that you get out on the other end are fantastic.
So how long before you, until you met your next partner, your current wife?
It took me, so Hannibal and I broke up end of 2015, and Hannah and I met, exactly 1 year ago. Today's what?
Oh, quite recent. Congratulations.
Yeah.
So you got married quite quickly.
I proposed to her on day 4 or so. No, so I think
You just knew.
I think I told her we should probably get married.
How did you meet?
We met in the middle of the street. So we just replicated.
Dubai.
No, in London.
Okay.
We just replicated. We re-celebrated the coincidence. So we bumped into each other. She knew about my work, my podcast and my books. And so she looked at me strange when I was walking in Marylebone, and I was like, "Do we know each other?" So she said, "No, you probably don't know me, but I know you." And then turned out that we had a common friend, so we spoke about her for a while. And then I was, at the time, I just ended my podcast last week, which was incredibly successful, top 5 in health and well-being, and I still chose to end it.
You're not doing podcasts anymore?
No, I'm focusing. We'll come back to that in a minute. But then Hannah just, I had a mini series in the podcast about love and romance, and I wasn't taking a man's perspective of it. And Hannah's a therapist who works with difficult men, if you want, and like me. and so I said, "Oh, that's amazing. Do you want to be on my podcast?" And she was like, "Oh, but you don't even know me." And I said, "It's fine. We'll record and
just have a chat.
We'll see." Yeah. And so we meet for the first time on my podcast, recording for an hour and a half, talking about love and romance.
Did this podcast go X-rated? Halfway through, you're on top of each other.
I will tell you,
top 5.
I will tell you openly, when people look at it now,
you can see the spark.
You can easily. So a lot of people go like, "Oh my God, it's so clear."
Flirtatious.
I was
signs.
completely nervous, which is very unlike me. Very unlike me. I've never been nervous before. And then, but I was like, most of the conversation, I was like, "Oh my God, that's amazing that you said that," because you're looking, basically, there's a lot of mental synchronicity about our views of things. Yeah.
Beautiful.
So yeah, so anyway,
So are you a difficult man?
every man is a difficult man.
I don't think so. I don't think I'm difficult.
That's why you're difficult.
I think I look at myself first before I look at anybody else. And that's
Uh,
why I don't think I'm difficult. Because I'm like, how can I make this up? Maybe it's
Okay.
too much. I'm trying to always put other
Can,
people
can,
first.
what do you think when what your wife will say when we ask her that question?
Well, I think she's got issues. So
Okay, that's what makes you a difficult man. So I will say
okay, I
openly.
think the way we see things is the story we attach to what we see. And the story is based on our past experiences. And that could be insecurity driven, hurt driven, pain driven, or positively driven. Like,
Mm,
in my humble opinion, like for instance, I had a girlfriend years ago, and we had a really good relationship, but she was like 11 years older than me, and I thought it wasn't going anywhere, so I finished. A year later, she phones me up and says, I went out with this bald Iranian guy, and he ripped me off and ran away with the money. And I said, well, we're not all the same.
mm.
And then there was another person I see, and then they had a bad experience, and they portrayed that onto me. Yeah, so in my humble opinion, a relationship has a far stronger chance when people get into it. They give each other the benefit of the doubt without carrying the scars into the new relationship.
So I
That's my, and I'd love to
I
hear your
agree.
feedback.
I agree. I think that's one perspective of it. Uh, I said every man is difficult. Okay, I should complete that sentence by saying, and also every woman is difficult. Okay, not because we are, but because if you look at the what we bring to a relationship, and I'm a techie, so maybe allow me to use an example where you have hardware, you have operating system, and you have software. That's how we're made. Okay, your hardware is your physique, and there is a need for compatibility in that, right? Your operating system is your core beliefs, your core approach to how you do things, and unfortunately, we're polar opposites. As a matter of fact, opposites attract. So if I had a woman in my life that was as masculine as I am in my approach to love and romance and relationships, I wouldn't even touch her. I wouldn't come near her, right? So by definition, we're attracting a very different approach to life to come into our life. Okay.
What is
And then, by the way,
may
the
I
third.
ask you
Yeah.
before we go, if you don't mind, I
I'll-
really want to go back. What are your 3 or 4 views? Because you said, if I met you, which we just met now, I would have thought you weren't that masculine.
In relationships, I am.
You
for
are.
sure.
Tell me about it, please. What are those views that are masculine
So
that you would think is
so
opposite to a woman?
So think about it this way. So let's take a few very clear examples,
Please.
valid for me, but valid for most of us.
Yes.
If a masculine and a feminine get together, by the way, even in a same-sex relationship,
Yes,
if a feminine and a masculine get together, the masculine will be all about doing, solving, progressing. The feminine is going to be all about being, reflecting, okay, and feeling.
Interesting.
Right? Very different approaches. That's number one. Number two is the masculine will be very, very linear and almost simplistic in our approach
That's very true.
to a situation. And the feminine will be very intuitive and paradoxical in the approach. So while you may look at a situation
It's a no-brainer.
and you would use
this.
words words
Yes,
that
exactly.
are this is very simple, or it's a
Correct.
no-brainer, it's
Yes,
this,
correct.
that would drive her mad, because in her very feminine view of life,
It's complicated.
it's a million things
Yeah.
that you, by the way, as a masculine don't see. Okay, there are, but what will Jane feel, and how will this person react, but that includes my children.
What's the ripple
mortal-
effect of the whole thing?
and it's
Yes.
and by the way, this is a very valid view of life. The feminine sees a much more complex, comprehensive picture. The masculine simplifies that picture in order to enable them to take action. Take it a layer deeper, and you would find that this paradoxical, very intuitive, very comprehensive view of life would then trigger a massive amount of emotion, Okay, while in your case it would trigger a very propelled action.
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
Can't wait to get up in the morning, sort that out.
Correct.
Yes.
Right. Now, is one right and the other wrong? No. But they are so different. So every man is difficult and every woman is difficult because you cannot find the match. You're like, why are you, if you're the masculine side, you're like, why are you overcomplicated things? Because I feel them. Because they are there.
They're
because
real to her.
Because they're real. And they are real. No, don't say real to her. They are real.
Yes.
You just filter them out.
Indeed.
Okay. Now, here is the other interesting side of this. You would then take that situation and go like, okay, you know what? You don't seem happy about this. Why don't I solve it? You're trying to get to a point where you're looking for a solution, right? She doesn't want to solve it.
Just waiting to hear her.
She wants to share it. She wants to feel that you're there for her. So here's the interesting thing. If you really analyze it, when I wrote Finders Keepers version 6, believe it or not, I wrote that book so many times and I never published it. I wrote 180 pages of it several times. I basically boiled it down to what I said. So what defines the masculine attitude in a relationship and the feminine attitude in a relationship? So the feminine is looking for safe, seen, and sex. If
feminine.
If the feminine is sexually active, they want safe, seen, and sex. Okay? We want we want seen, free, and sex, or FSS.
I think we want sex.
Not at all. Not at all.
Sex, stomach, sex.
Not at all. As a matter of fact, when a woman is safe and seen, she wants more sex than you.
I 100% agree.
Okay. Now, but I avoid woman because when the feminine is okay. Now, these are quite interesting because we both want to be seen, and we both want the oxytocin, the physical connection. Okay. It's the difference happens between you want to be free, to go out in the world and act. She wants to be safe. And that's where most of the time the masculine is very difficult. Because when we are confused about how the feminine is behaving, we behave in a way that makes them feel not safe.
Indeed.
Okay?
We want to run away.
We either want to run away, we either become pushy, we become aggressive, we become critical. Okay? And in a very, very real way, that completely takes the safety away. If you take the safety away, you take the being seen away. And if you take the being seen away, you take the sex away.
Do you know what's incredible? Because until now, I've been thinking I'm compromising. But that's a wrong thought. I'm not understanding.
You don't understand. So what is the absolute answer? And Hannah and I, we're very thoughtful, both of us. I am very masculine. She's very feminine.
Is she similar age to yourself?
Hannah's much younger. So Hannah's 38. I'm 57.
Very wise for 38.
Oh, she's incredibly intelligent and wise. Oh my! I was telling her the other week, she's definitely one of the most intelligent people I know, which I know sounds annoying, but it is an incredibly valuable quality for me. She's also
especially for you, we're thinking.
Exactly, and she's also gorgeous and very feminine and very sexy, and she's a wonderful woman. But that intelligence allows us to have those deep conversations, and basically the whole game, if you ask me, is you have a different operating system. It's not even a different programming. When we were talking, there is a hardware, an operating system, and programming. Programming is all the traumas and baggage and all of that.
Indeed, that anybody can have.
That we all have.
Yes, it's the operating system.
But the challenge is the OS. The OS is so different, okay, that if you don't ignore the programming and focus on understanding and aligning on the OS, you'll never have a relationship that lasts.
Wow.
And I think this is, and I can easily tell you, which we men do a lot when we're without our women, I can easily tell you, oh, they're crazy, they're unpredictable, they're this and that, and we all bitch about it, okay? But the truth is, they're very different. And when they are talking, they think of us as simple and crazy, okay? And very
Binary?
Sort of, right?
Yes.
Like very shallow.
Yes, correct.
Okay.
It's just this or that.
Yeah, right?
Yes.
And both perceptions are correct. Okay. Both perceptions also,
But we can live in both.
when we work together, those perceptions is what creates humanity. Okay. And I think that is the game where we fail. The game where we fail is we want her to behave like us so that we understand her. And if she did behave like us,
We
you
won't
would
be attracted to them
you
anymore.
would never touch her.
Wow.
Okay. And by the way, I say that to the feminine as well. You force us to be emotionally available and right. If we behaved like your girlfriend, you wouldn't be attracted to me.
Yes.
Okay.
And also,
The game is how do we be
to myself?
Yeah.
I need to,
Exactly.
I want to like myself to be liked by you.
Correct.
If I have very little self-worth, I
Yeah.
wouldn't want to even expose myself to you in
Exactly.
any possible way.
Yeah, exactly.
Beautiful. I'm loving this, by the way.
I'm
And
totally
I'll be
enjoying it.
honored if we can do this again.
Anytime you want.
I'll be honored.
I feel like I'm with a very good friend, which
I feel the same.
Yeah, I think it's wonderful.
I feel the same. Honestly, you've touched my soul, and I
You're so
thank you
kind.
for it.
Thank you.
No, you're so kind. I honor you, and I respect you, and I thank you. From my bottom of my heart, I thank you. What are you going to do for the next 5 years, 10 years? Where is your journey, do you think?
I do a 40 days silent retreat once a year.
By yourself?
Yeah, not the monk monastery type. I go somewhere where I'm alone. This year I only managed to do 32, and I have to say,
Where in the world?
it doesn't matter. It's anywhere where I have nature.
And you tell your wife, I need this 40 days.
Yeah, I mean, this year I failed to do 40 years because of so many things that happened in my year. I had 32 days, and so I have to say, by the way, the number 40 is quite impactful. So there is something of a cleanse that happens, and I don't do as I said, it's not a monk retreat. I listen to music. I can go and order food. I write. I walk around. I just don't expose myself to the noise of
Love it.
arguments of humanity,
We call
if
it
you want.
small talk.
Correct. Yeah. And I had a very, very difficult year. I lost my sister and my brother and my mother 2 months apart. And I was having a very interesting conversation with one of my best friends where I said, it just highlights to you that life is very fragile. And she said, no, you're going to be fine. You're healthy. But you have to understand you have only a few good years in you. And I said, what do you mean? And she said, there is a difference between being alive and being fully productive. Okay. And, I'm in my late 50s. So the conversation was, if you're going to write and it takes you 2.5 to 3 years to publish a book, how many more
books you have?
How many more books? And if you have an answer in your head, suddenly you start to be very selective about which book you're going to write, right?
And do you know what I say? Not just that, who you spend time with.
Correct. Okay. And what you spend your time on. And so we said that I stopped doing, my slow-mo podcast. Slow-mo was really a joy for me because I had the opportunity to meet amazing people. It was in the top 5. So, who would shut down a top 5? And it was a big part of my mission of, trying to get people to find alternative ways to look at happiness, right? And yeah, I simply said, look, within this season, you know how it is. I do 52 podcasts a year, right? With all the travel associated with it, with setting up the studios, because I don't do all of them in my studio, and finding the guests and right. I suddenly told myself in a very interesting way, I'm more impactful in this by being on your platform
than having people come to you.
Than having people on my platform. And at the same time, the amount of time that this frees up for me allows me to slow down. And slow down is a very interesting insight that you get from silent retreats. So when you slow down in a silent retreat, you are so much more productive.
Wow.
It's shocking. It's shocking. Like, I wrote Unstressable, my last book. I wrote it with my co-author around 60% of it was written in a week and a half of my silent retreat.
It's funny because I didn't even think about it. When I want to be productive, I go on holiday by myself.
Yeah, alone.
And I face the sea. I sit in a restaurant, position my seat.
Paper and
so
pen.
I'm not looking at anybody. Paper and everywhere. And I write, create quotations and motivational stuff.
Yeah.
Mo, absolute honor. I salute you, my gladiator.
Thank you. You're very kind.
An hour and a half, an hour for I've learned so much, and it's been priceless experience for me. Thank you so much. From deep in my soul, I honor you. Thank you so much.
I really enjoyed it. Honestly, I'm really, really grateful. I think you gave me a chance to spend an hour and a half with a friend.
I feel that
I have no idea how we ended up in all of those topics.
I hope, and we could have gone forever. Honestly, he says I have to train 65 arrogant salespeople in an hour in downtown, and you know what the traffic's going to be.
Oh my God,
like.
you're not going to make it.
You know what's really funny? Yesterday, I trained 30 odd people. They're all salespeople. They've divided their salespeople into A-rated and B-rated. This company, and they're all millionaires.
Oh my God!
So I had to imagine I'm going to teach 35 millionaire salespeople who've got no headaches. Imagine their egos in the room.
Yeah.
So what started at 5 o'clock, I finished at 9. But they challenge you because they think they know it all.
Yeah.
I was exhausted, but I effed them blind throughout the evening. So in the morning, I'm talking in front of a royal family from Ras Al Khaimah.
No way.
So my mentality is in abusive mode. So I turn up early. I'm like, okay, don't swear, don't be confrontational.
Yeah.
And my first
They're
was
not
what?
the same people.
Yes. Then my first was, well, I don't kiss ass. Oh no, I don't kiss bottoms. So everybody was laughing. But it's been an absolute honor. I salute you.
Same here. I am really grateful.
To a long friendship, I hope.
I hope so. I think we should exchange numbers, and coffees are always the best way to
Done.
to go.
Thank you. So thank
You're
you.
so kind. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I
Thanks
salute
for the
you.
opportunity. Yeah.
Guys, wow. Thank you.